Ladies and gentlemen.
You know, I always like to take this opportunity to talk about myself.
The man of the hour.
And let me tell you something, Daddy.
When you're the man, you make history every time you step foot in this ring.
And that's the bottom line.
At the top. Sweet Wrestling Podcast.
You know you like that.
Cass, we're about to hop right on into this.
You know you like that. You know you like that. You know you like that. What? You know you like that. Come on. You know you like that.
And not waste any time. WWE TLC, man. We got WWE TLC. We got hot takes. We got jokes. We got all of this, man. I know you see a bunch of scrolling images, and we're going to talk about a lot more than just WWE TLC. So let's hop right on into this thing, ladies and gentlemen. Let's not waste any more time. So, man, what a show it was. And I'm not just saying that, man. I had no expectations for TLC. But man, quite the pay-per-view it was. We had quite the outing. We're gonna start with AJ Styles and Drew McIntyre. I was very surprised that this opened the show, but it was what it was. These guys went out and had a phenomenal match, no pun intended. I love the calf crusher, the assisted calf crusher with the ladder. This was a great matchup, but the story of the matchup was The Miz coming down. And man, he had the Money in the Bank briefcase, and man, it was quite the thing. When he came down, I'm thinking, okay, The Miz is gonna win this thing. So ultimately, it turns out that Drew McIntyre thwarts The Miz, thwarts AJ Styles and wins the match, and they had a lot of people talking. A lot of people was upset that we had another Money in the Bank briefcase winner that failed at a cash in. And this just goes to prove what we knew all along, to be quite honest with y'all. And that is the fact that they never had a long-term plan for the Money in the Bank briefcase. It was very obvious when Otis won it from the start. Like going back to Money in the Bank when it was all on that roof. There were plenty of guys and gals, or guys in this case, that needed it more than Otis. And when Otis won it, it was like, what the hell was that? You get it mad because it was Otis, but he was like, okay, let's just see where this goes. And they never had a long-term plan for Otis. They never had a long-term plan for The Miz. And here we sit with a Money in the Bank briefcase that's worth nothing now. Now, I don't have a problem in theory with Drew McIntyre being the champion. Not at all, man. But it's just so sad that the Money in the Bank briefcase winner, it just went to waste. So moving on, ladies and gentlemen, we had Sasha Banks, we had Carmella. And I haven't been the biggest fan of this feud, if I'm being quite honest with y'all. But the match itself, look, man, we call Kenny Omega the best bout machine. That is what we need to start calling Sasha Banks at this point. The best bout machine. She comes with a working boot on, and she delivers when the moment is biggest. Like, when she comes to this pay-per-view matches, man, it's going to be a bona fide great match, and that's what it was with Carmella. Second half of this match was really good. It kept the outside interference to a minimum, so I appreciated that. And Carmella, man, I really enjoyed what she brought to the table in this match as well. We had a lot of great chain reversals, and a phenomenal match, man, that ended with Sasha Banks putting on Banks' statement for the win. She gets the win. She moves on. We'll see what happens at the Royal Rumble. So moving on, we have the New Day and the Hurt Business. And man, surprise, surprise. We have new tag team champions. And I said prior to this match that they needed to put the titles on the Hurt Business. I just didn't think that they would go through with it. So I was pretty shocked when the Hurt Business got the win there. Pleasantly shocked, to be honest. I don't like the fact that we're teasing a breakup already, like right when the Hurt Business has won the titles. We already got Cedric Alexander teasing the breakup. I don't necessarily like that. But nevertheless, the match was outstanding. Well, I won't say outstanding, but it was really good. How about that? I enjoy the result, and this feud will continue, and I have no problems with that whatsoever. Next up, we had Asuka, and who is going to be the mystery opponent? Sure enough, oh my gosh, Charlotte Flair. As soon as Charlotte Flair came out, I just put on Twitter, Grand Slam champion Charlotte Flair. We already know what's going on here. Yeah, Charlotte and Asuka versus Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler. And long story short, we have new women's tag team champions in what was a decent match at best. But you know why Charlotte's here. In immortal words of Marshawn Lynch, you know why she's here. I don't want to be a spoiler, but this is what's going to happen. Charlotte is going after that women's world title. Asuka and Charlotte are the tag team champions. You mean to tell me we're not about to have a Charlotte 2 belts? Like that's going to go down. Just for future purposes. But Asuka and Charlotte are your new women's tag team champions. We're going. We had Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns. And when they showed the video package for this match, I'm like, wait a minute. This ain't main event. And what we got was a phenomenal match, man. I was worried that we'd have too much Jey Uso, but he didn't get into the match that much. Like it was a bit too much for me, but not enough to completely take away from the match. What we got was brutal, fierce Roman Reigns. Like, I like this Roman Reigns. Like, he is a old school heel. He wants you to hate him. And he brutalizes his opponents. I like this side of him. What we got was an outstanding match, man. Some great spots. We had Kevin Owens say, you will have to kill me to win this title. And it was an outstanding match. Roman Reigns picks up the victory. The ending was kind of flat for my taste. That's just me. But the match overall, phenomenal. I don't get into putting stars on matches, but I would just say that it was a great, phenomenal matchup that I really enjoyed. A physical matchup that fit the build of this build. And the right result. Roman Reigns had to win there. So we get to the main event. And it is the Firefly Funhouse Inferno match. So I'm thinking right off top, okay, this is going to be a cinematic match. And Randy Orton is coming out to the ring. So it's like, okay, it's not a cinematic match. It's not even going to be in the Firefly Funhouse. So Bray Wyatt comes out, and let me tell you how sick wrestling fans are. They start to get into a regular matchup, and all the way down my timeline on Twitter, including me, is saying, where's the fire? Where's the fire? Where's the fire? We want fire. And we got the fire. In any immortal words of Marshawn Lynch, you know why I'm here. You know why we're here. We got the fire, ladies and gentlemen. And what we got was quite the affair. And like, the match didn't go on as long as I would have wanted it to. But look, man, I wanted violence. And I got it. It lived up to the bill. We got a pickaxe in the thing. We got a rocking chair set on fire. And it was violent, man. It didn't look like PG WWE. And just to drive that point further home, get to the end of the match. Bray Wyatt is set on fire. We get an RKO for good measure. And look, man, Randy Orton is just standing there, right? He pours gasoline all around the ring, and we get Bray Wyatt in flames. Complete flames. What an image it was. And you know what? I'm here for it. USA had a report that said USA wanted Raw to be more dark, in a darker image. Well, but be careful what you ask for. There's Vince McMahon back there. You're going to get dark. How about Vince McMahon to just come out and say, oh, well, you want dark, and we just going to kill somebody then? How about that? Like, I was questioning why that was the main event at first, but you know what? I like it. I want some more of it, man. Randy Orton picks up the win. The only problem that I have with it is Bray Wyatt, man. If John Cena is Big Match John, then Bray Wyatt is coming up small in the Big Match Bray. This dude stay losing big matches, man. He hasn't lost all of his big matches, but he's lost the majority of them, man. Like, goodness, he's steadily losing matches. And then 5 minutes after the show is over, Bray Wyatt is tweeting. Like, I know kayfabe is there, but come on, man. Like, you can't be tweeting right after the show is over. At least let it just burn into the end of Monday Night Raw, bro. Come on, man. Like, yeah, I didn't like that. So moving on, ladies and gentlemen, to my hot takes. We're going to get right on into this. We're going to start with Sting, ladies and gentlemen. Icon. Sting, the franchise. Sting. My hot take is, I see a lot of people saying that they want Sting to be a manager in AEW. My hot take is no. I do not want Sting to be a manager in AEW. Like, at this point, Sting is not the traditional manager. I don't want to see him walking out the Arn Anderson Waffle House menu. Like, no, that's not Sting. That's not what he's supposed to do. And my thing is this. You can have a Sting-Darby alliance without it being the traditional manager. Without Sting being in the traditional manager role. So if they want to go down that route, then fine. They can show Sting and Darby up in the stands, up in the rafters, chilling. And Sting could have the occasional appearance, just like he had on the most recent, I think it was Dynamite, where he just pops up where somebody's in trouble. And he's ready to wreck the heels. And you know what, man? I would be all for that for Sting. And just not the traditional manager role. I cannot live with that. And I do not want to see that for Sting. We'll see how this thing plays out. So moving on to number 2, ladies and gentlemen. Roman Reigns. I just got done talking about how great he is. Roman Reigns and Jey Uso. And this has turned into Ted DiBiase and Virgil. I'm sorry, man. There's a lot of people that's liking what's going on with Roman and Jey. I think it's decent, but man, I really liked it when it was Jey Uso trying to punch up to Big Brother Roman Reigns. And it seemed like they were building to a point where Jey was going to be on Roman's level. He was beating guys like Daniel Bryan, main eventers. And now, man, it just really feels like he's nothing but a lackey. I'm sorry, that's just what it is. That's just what it looks like. The dude is Virgil. He's Roman's lackey. That's what it looks like, man. And I wish that they would do more outside of that. Besides, we get into the traditional Roman Reigns feud. I don't know who he's going to be feuding with next. But here's Jey Uso. Has to interfere in the match. Interfere in the feud. There could be bigger things for Jey Uso. Why don't they, I don't know the status of Jimmy, if he's hurt or not, or if he's out. But man, bring the Usos back and let's run this bloodline stable. Jey don't have to be the lackey. I do not like that whatsoever. That's all he is at this point. He's a lackey. That's just my opinion. So moving on to number 3, ladies and gentlemen. People just hate fun. That's another take for me in the wrestling community. Looking at this AEW Impact, what seems to be a partnership. people were already out. There were some people excited now. And there were some people saying that, oh, why are they partnering up with Impact? What are they doing that for? Like, man, why are you even saying that? It is a fun time in wrestling. All we should be doing is enjoying it, man. But yeah, there's just some people out there that hate fun. It's just like no matter how good the storyline is, no matter how good things are going, they just hate fun. And there's nothing to hate about this Impact AEW relationship. There are a lot of good things that could come from this. I don't know where they're gonna go with it, but there are a lot of good people that can come from Impact Wrestling onto AEW and people from AEW onto Impact. I would like to see something more than just Omega. So we'll see how it turns out. I'd like to see some Impact guys or girls or both appear on AEW Dynamite. We'll see how it all plays out. Moving on, we got Finn Balor and Kyle O'Reilly for the title at New Year's Evil. We got Omega versus Phoenix as well. And I'm here to say that those matches are going to be outstanding. I'm going to watch those matches. However, these are two matches that are less than what both companies could put on. I looked at Balor versus O'Reilly, and the money match there was Balor versus Pete Dunne. We were on the edge of having Balor versus Pete Dunne, and that was the more interesting matchup to me. That was the more marquee matchup to me. Not to say that Balor and O'Reilly won't have a great rematch, but we've already seen that, to be honest. But Pete Dunne and Balor is just marquee. And looking at AEW, we got Omega versus Phoenix. Again, that's going to be an outstanding matchup. But when Pac came out with the mic at the end of AEW Dynamite, I was like, oh, yeah, boy. We're getting Pac versus Omega, and it's Omega versus Phoenix? I don't know about that one. And like Omega versus Pac was the money matchup there. That's the one they should have gone with. But nevertheless, I like both matchups. Don't get me wrong. I like Balor versus O'Reilly. I like Omega versus Phoenix. I just think that there are two other options that could have made for mega matches. That's just me. Moving on to number 5, I'll tell you something I don't like about Kenny Omega. It's that stupid entrance. Like, that entrance sucks, man. And it's not even in a I hate the heel type of way. Like, I just don't like the entrance. It just like we got ladies out there dancing with brooms. And initially, they didn't even bother to explain the cleaner part to maybe people who haven't watched NW Pro Wrestling, excuse me. So that threw me off. That made me upset. But at least they went on to explain that he's the cleaner now. Took them long enough, but at least they explained it. Nevertheless, I don't like the entrance. I don't like him getting intro with all those accolades that don't mean anything. Like, it's just over the top for me. It's just not interesting to me. Just hit the cleaners music. Let them show up as the best bout machine. And that's all we need. That's just me. Speaking of things we need, Thunder Rosa, man. Thunder Rosa is it for AEW and it for the AEW women's division. I am a huge fan of Thunder Rosa, even going back to her days in Lucha Underground when I first seen her. Like, she has done some tremendous things, and the thing I like most about her is that, look, everyone, I've never seen anything like it. Everyone in this generation, everyone in this age can go in that wrestling ring. All of them. But not everyone has a phenomenal character. And you know what? Thunder Rosa fits the bill. I like her character. I like what she brings to the table. And even then, she can cut a great promo as well. So, like, when she comes to that curtain, she's believable. And people don't even come to a curtain anymore. Like when Steve Austin used to come through that curtain back in the day, it was believable. When Thunder Rosa comes to the curtain, she's believable. I like what she brings to the table. And she's one of the best not just as it pertains to women, but just one of the best overall as it pertains to in that ring. And I want to see more of her in AEW. She has what I would call a good feud going on with Britt Baker, and I'm ready to say how that turns out. I think the winner of that feud needs to move on to an AEW Women's Championship feud. So I'm very interested to see how that turns out. Speaking of women's feuds, man, we just got done talking about Sasha and Carmella earlier in the TLC breakdown. I haven't had a chance to do a podcast in months, and I just want to say that, man, they blew Sasha Banks and Bayley. They blew this feud, man. Like, nothing against Carmella, but we had Sasha Banks and Bayley going on, and I had such high hopes for this feud, and I was out. This is back around town. I had a hurricane going on. I couldn't even podcast, couldn't do anything. And that's when Bayley turned heel. We had this feud kick off, and I thought that it was going to be the greatest thing to sliced bread. And the only thing we got was the Hell in a Cell match and one random match on a SmackDown. And they blew it, man. There was so much more to squeeze out of that Sasha Banks Bayley feud. I don't know if they're gonna go back to it. We'll see. It won't be the same if they try to go back to it. In my opinion, I don't think they will go back to it. But in the interim, as we stand right now, it just didn't pique my interest. I thought there was more to be had. And yeah, man, they blew it, in my opinion. That's just me. That's just what I think. So moving on, ladies and gentlemen, speaking of Sasha Banks, let's talk about our family. Snoop Dogg, ladies and gentlemen, I kid you not. This was after the Roy Jones, Mike Tyson fight. I wrote down in my notes, Snoop Dogg needs to do commentating for wrestling, but not necessarily for WWE. Because you can't steal to Snoop Dogg, and that's what WWE is going to try to do some commentary. Snoop Dogg will be working with AEW. How about that, ladies and gentlemen? I'm excited, man. Here's the deal. You got to give Snoop Dogg something he knows. He knew Mike Tyson and Roy Jones. So whether it's Cody Rhodes, you got to give him familiar faces, whether it's Cody Rhodes, whether it's anybody, Jake the Snake, give him some familiar faces and it could get real funny. I hope they're bringing them on commentary to do some commentary because the stuff was just funny in the Mike Tyson Roy Jones fight, man. So I hope they're bringing them on to commentary. We'll see how it turns out, but I think Snoop is going to be excellent for AEW. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, speaking of music, we have Pete Dunne. We have Pat McAfee, Oni Lorcan, and Danny Burch. This stable is Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5. Look, man, I liked it when it was Pete Dunne, Oni Lorcan, and Danny Burch. They all fit as a stable. They were the tag team, and Pat McAfee was the mouthpiece. Pete Dunne just does not fit with this stable. He's just too big for this stable. Like I say, it's Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5. He doesn't fit with the stable. He doesn't look like he fits with the stable. He doesn't walk like him. He doesn't talk like him. They really messed up, in my opinion. Just my take. Pete Dunne was better as the loner tweener. They really messed up when they turned him heel and had him aligned with this faction because he fits best when he's not aligned with heels, he's not aligned with faces. He's just going out there beating up everybody. And he's too cool to boo. I'm telling you, if it was a full audience in there, they'd just be cheering this guy anyways. That's just Pete Dunne. And I wish they would have kept him as the loner tweener that he was. And hopefully he'll get back to that. I don't want to see him as the heel in this table because he does not fit. It is not Boys to Men where everybody's equal. It is Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5, them people, them dudes over there, and Pete Dunne. That's what it is. So moving on. Music. We keep this music thing going, I guess. Moving on to the Acclaim. in AEW. And look, I got a hot take, man. Look, Max Caster, I like these dudes, to be honest. But Max Caster has to drop the chain. He has to drop the chain. Look, if you gonna rap, then that's one thing. But if you gonna keep that chain, people gonna call you a great value dollar store John Cena. And they won't be wrong. You gotta drop the chain, man. every week he comes out and he has the chain, he's rapping. What's the first thing you think about? Not how great he is. You think about John Cena, don't you? So I drop the chain, man. And second of all, I will say this. Since we rapping, and since we got a little bit of it last week, let's have this Frankie Kazarian and Max Caster rap off. I want a John Cena Kurt Angle vibe. They had a freestyle battle and then the crowd just ate that up. Let's have that with Kazarian and Max Caster. Look, it would be funny if you're asking me. I would love it. Kazarian dropped some bars last week and I was like, hey, Kazarian, let's do this, man. So give it to me. In more the words of Batista, give me what I want. So moving on, ladies and gentlemen. Speaking of things I want, Miro. Look, silly Miro has to go in AEW. Miro, I had expectations for him when he arrived in AEW. And look, Tony Khan said that, you know what, WWE, he said something to the effect that WWE used him like crap. Eventually, that's what happened. That's how it turned out. But look, this hasn't exactly been what I thought it did. AEW got Miro fighting over video games and crap and nights at weddings. Look, give me serious Miro. You remember that AEW Dynamite not too long ago where they ended with Miro just chunking people off the stage to left and right? It got interesting. He's a whole lot like Mark Henry. In my opinion, it gets really fun when you start tossing people around and beating people up. It gets fun. So that's the Miro that I want to see. Serious, just beating the hell out of people Miro. That's what I want to see, man. Less of this silly stuff that we got going on and more of serious Miro. Give it to me, man. Moving on to number 12, Ciampa Gargano. I hate to say it, but they've become uninteresting to me. And that doesn't have anything to do with their ability. But it feels like they've done everything that they could possibly do in NXT. If there's anybody that needs to be called up, it's those two guys. I know it didn't go all that well. They had that half-done call-up way back when, I think it was a couple of years ago. But they need to be caught up on the main roster at this point. Because, look, don't get me wrong, they are continuing to have really good matches. And, you had Ciampa and Timothy Thatcher. I enjoyed that. You had Gargano in an outstanding matchup, triple threat matchup for the North American title. I enjoyed that matchup, but those guys, I don't want to call them gatekeepers of NXT, but it certainly feels like that. And they've done all there is to do in NXT. They certainly can't fight each other anymore. So bring these guys up to the main roster because, it's just been too long in NXT. It's time for them to move on. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen. The Inner Circle. When they teased the Inner Circle breaking up, I was like, yes, make it happen. I got to take that the Inner Circle needs to break up. Now, I've always had this take for quite some time now that the sum of the Inner Circle's parts is far greater than the whole. What do I mean by that? Glad you asked. Look, when it comes to these guys individually, everybody except Jake Hager is much better off individually than they are in the circle. Think about it. Jericho to me is more entertaining by himself. Sammy Guevara, more entertaining by himself. Ortiz and Santana, man, way more interesting by themselves. And I want to get into them as I talk about MJF, another guy, more interesting by himself. Ortiz and Santana, man, I have been wanting them to break off from the Inner Circle because when Ortiz and Santana debuted, they had all the juice, man. They had all the juice. And shortly thereafter, they joined the Inner Circle, and they have just lost all the momentum that they previously had when they debuted. When they debuted, man, I looked at them as one of the top acts, on the entire roster. And they are just not that anymore, man. And we need them to come back and be as great as they once were. So I want to see them break off from the Inner Circle. That's just me. I like to see the Inner Circle break off as a whole. That's just me as well. But at the very least, break Santana and Ortiz off. So moving on, ladies and gentlemen, number 13, War Games. And I'm going back on this one, but I haven't had a chance to podcast in quite some time, so I got to get into these topics, man. We've redefined both War Games matches on the War Games NXT War Games pay-per-view were fun matches. Don't get me wrong, but there were people that were saying that they were brutal, and we've completely redefined what brutal is in a War Games matchup. I'm an old school fan. Like, no, man, Ric Flair used to bleed these matchups, man. He used to really be brutal matchups. And, like, we redefined brutal in this era for War Games, and I just don't see brutal when I see these War Games matchups. I see fun. I see fun spots. I see good action. But brutal, just don't call them brutal. That's just me. Don't call them brutal. I'm an old school War Games fan. Don't call these matches brutal. That's just me. So moving on, ladies and gentlemen, we have, ladies and gentlemen, Hangman Page. This guy's falling off, man. Like, we got the stuff going on with the Dark Order, and Hangman Page is just not a guy to be in the Dark Order, in my estimation. That's just me. This all started. He fell off not when he won the titles with Omega, but you can tell that we were heading for a feud with the guys, and Omega took off after this feud, and Hangman has kind of gone down in this feud. That's just me. That's just the way I see it. Hopefully 2021 is greater for Hangman than what's going on now, but I'm just not feeling him being a part of the Dark Order. It's just not very interesting to me. So moving on, ladies and gentlemen, the Raw Women's division. They are struggling. Look, I didn't plan it like this. I ain't know that, that Charlotte Flair would be appearing last night, but the Raw Women's division is struggling. And here's what's going to happen. As I said before, they didn't go with Asuka and Shayna. They chose to have women's division doing nothing. And here's why. Here's my take. They've had the Raw Women's division struggling so that they can justify Charlotte Flair coming in here and taking the title from Asuka. That's just me. Now, they've been doing nothing with the women's title all this time. And now, surely enough, watch. Charlotte Flair is eventually, I don't know if she's going to turn on Asuka or what. We'll see. But eventually, she's going to come into that thing and challenge for the world title, and it's just going to make me sick to my stomach, man. Like, I'm sick of Charlotte. I'm sick of Charlotte winning that title. She's a 12-time champion. Like, I forgot how many times Charlotte had actually won the title. They said that, and I was like, oh, my God, 12 times? Yeah, she's 12 times. She's on the way to catch Ric Flair. She's going to break that record. So it's only a matter of time that happens. Last up, ladies and gentlemen, last one just happened to that I just thought of this morning. I've been seeing for quite some time a lot of people mentioning The Rock versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, and I'm like, no. I understand that having Roman say that he's the head of the table all of this time, and then to have The Rock show up and say, who the hell are you saying that you are the head of the table? That would be an outstanding storyline. but it's not what we need. Roman Reigns needs to be vanquished by a full-time roster member, and that needs to happen at WrestleMania. I don't know if it's Kevin Owens. I personally want it to be Big E, but the way that they're booking Big E right now is like he's more around the Intercontinental title than the World title once we get to WrestleMania. So if they want to play a long-term Kevin Owens storyline, I would be for that. Whomever it may be, it does not need to be The Rock. That's just my opinion on that one. And that is my opinion on all these hot takes, ladies and gentlemen. You can find me on Twitter at TooSweetPod and at OMGCoreyB. linktr.ee/TooSweetPod. I am out, ladies and gentlemen. It was a hell of a WWE TLC tables, ladders, and chairs pay-per-view. Very fun to end the year, and we'll see what happens tonight on Monday Night Raw, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm very interested. We shall see how it all turns out. Let me know what you think on Twitter at TooSweetPod and at OMG Corey B.